1441 AD, the West African coast. This is not just an old date written in a worn-out calendar. This is the moment when the wheel of time turned for my people. The moment when ocean winds carried the scent of strangers, men who did not come for friendship, but to swallow the spirit of a continent. Come closer, my friends. A little closer. Can you smell these old papers? The dust? The weight of time? In the last episode, we walked together through the golden halls of Timbuktu. Do you remember? Under the shade of the baobab trees, when our kings sat proudly on their thrones and gold rested in my people's hands like grains of sand. We were in the cradle of civilization, safe, proud, and shining. But you must understand something. The higher the sun rises, the darker the shadow it leaves behind. History is not always beautiful and straight the way it was sold to you in school textbooks. The truth sometimes hides inside flames and the smell of blood. My name is James, the grandson of men who touched chains, but whose spirits were never captured. I am here to be a voice for those whose mouths were filled with dirt and whose names were erased from the record of history. Close your eyes now and travel with me into the depths of time. Do you smell the salt of the sea? The breeze from the Atlantic moving through palm leaves? This is a village near the coast of Senegambia in the years before colonialism even had a name. The sun is slowly sinking into the horizon. The sky has turned red, like pomegranate blood. Do you hear children laughing as they chase chickens? The smell of grilled fish and wood smoke fills the air. Life here moves like the steady beat of a drum, ordered, peaceful, beautiful. The men have returned from hunting. The women are pounding grain. They don't know. My God, none of them know. This is the last safe sunset their civilization will ever see. Among them is a young man named Kofi. His arms carry the smell of earth and hard work. He believes tomorrow will look just like today. He believes he will watch his child grow beneath these same trees. But at that same moment, far beyond what the village eyes can't see, on that thin line of the horizon, three black shapes appear. Three sails spread wide over the water like bat wings. Portuguese ships. They did not come to trade gold. They did not come to learn. They did not come for peace. They discovered something deep in our forests more valuable than gold in the markets of Europe. They came to hunt flesh, skin, human blood. And even more painful than those ships is the shadow creeping behind the village. A brother watching his own brother. A betrayal eating this land from the inside like termites. Listen, do you hear it? The faint creak of the first chain? Tonight, the heart of the village will stop, and a scream will rise that will echo through history for centuries. It was past midnight. The village fires had turned to ash, and only the sound of crickets broke the heavy silence of the forest. Kofi lay beside his wife in deep sleep. The only sound in their hut was the soft breathing of their baby in a woven cradle. The air smelled of damp soil and wild plants mixed with night dew. And then, the dogs went silent. You know, my friends, when real evil approaches, even animals are afraid to breathe. It was as if nature itself trembled at what was coming. At that same moment, on the shore, small boats touched the sand without a sound. Men in heavy clothing and strange hats stepped out, holding cold black iron barrels in their hands, thick fabric soaked in ship humidity. And something my people had never known before, the sharp, burning scent of gunpowder. They smelled different, old sweat. Then suddenly, an explosion tore through the sacred silence of the night. Flames leapt from the straw roofs like the arms of a demon. The first thing Kofi felt was not the heat of fire. but the choking burn of black smoke closing his throat. He jumped awake in terror. Before he could call his wife's name, he heard a scream that shook him to his bones. The village that had been peaceful moments ago turned into hell. Fences breaking, women and children screaming, and the cursed sound of gunfire, like thunder trapped inside iron. Kofi pushed his wife toward the dark forest and shouted, "Run! Just run and never come back!" He stayed behind, holding nothing but a simple wooden spear against cold iron guns. His mouth tasted bitter, like copper and blood. He smelled burning flesh and hair in the smoke. One of the strangers stepped forward. His face glowed red in the firelight, and his eyes were colder than stones at the bottom of the ocean. Kofi raised his spear to defend his home and identity, but the heavy butt of a rifle struck his temple, and the world went black. The last thing he heard was the heartbreaking cry of his baby, lost beneath chaos and chains. When the sun rose again, uncaring, the village was gone. Only columns of black smoke remained, and footprints leading toward the sea. They hunted my people like animals in cages, not because of crimes they committed, but because of the strength in their arms and the greatness in their roots. Chains. Those cursed chains whose sound still echoes through history. Cold, heavy, merciless. They bound them together, man to man, woman to woman. A long line of broken human beings stretching to the horizon. Their bleeding feet dragging across hot sand, each step a final goodbye to soil they would never touch again. My friends, have you ever tasted wet, salty earth? When Kofi regained consciousness on the burning shore, he tasted blood and sand in his mouth. They dragged him like cargo toward a white stone structure standing on the edge of the ocean like a silent monster. Elmina Castle. In their language, the name may sound beautiful, but for us, it was the open mouth of hell. Its walls carried the smell of rot, dampness, and old fear soaked deep into stone. For centuries, the ocean washed those walls. But if you place your hand against the cold rock, you can still hear the muffled cries of mothers calling their children. True hell is not fire and bullets. True hell is shaking in total darkness while hot iron burns your ankles and your soul begins to separate from your body. They threw Kofi into a dungeon so low he could not stand upright. Inside were men who once danced with him in the village, hunters of lions, strong and proud. Now they did not even recognize one another. Their eyes were empty, as if a light inside them had been turned off. Do you know why? Because the strangers did not just take our bodies. They came with a plan to steal our names. From that moment on, no one was Kofi. No one was a king, a craftsman, or a father. In their eyes, we were only numbers. Units of cargo recorded in the ledger of a drunken merchant in Lisbon. The iron door opened with a harsh screech. The smell of sweat, alcohol, and tobacco filled the air. They came to inspect us. Rough hands pulled at teeth and squeezed muscles, like traders examining livestock. They dragged Kofi into the courtyard. In the center, a fire burned. A piece of iron glowed orange in the flames. Have you ever heard that sound? The hiss of burning metal touching living flesh? The smell of seared skin filled the air. Latin letters were branded onto Kofi's shoulder, a mark of ownership. He no longer belonged to himself, not to his wife, not to his land. He belonged to a company whose name he could not even pronounce. Then the door opened. The one history would call the door of no return. A small, narrow doorway opening to the endless, dark ocean. Kofi limped forward, chains cutting his ankles raw. For the last time, he turned his head and tried to breathe in the scent of his homeland. Warm rain and fertile soil. He wanted to scream, but his tongue stuck in his dry mouth. Before him stood the ocean, vast and merciless, a blue monster that would become the grave of millions. He did not know the ship waiting in the distance was not simply a vessel. It was a coffin floating on water. He did not know the ship waiting in the distance was not simply a vessel. It was a coffin floating on water. He did not know the ship waiting in the distance was not simply a vessel. It was a coffin floating on water. He did not know the ship waiting in the distance was not simply a vessel. It was a coffin floating on water. He did not know the ship waiting in the distance was not simply a vessel. It was a coffin floating on water. He did not know the ship waiting in the distance was not simply a vessel. It was a coffin floating on water. He did not know the ship waiting in the distance was not simply a vessel. It was a coffin floating on water. He did not know the ship waiting in the distance was not simply a vessel. It was a coffin floating on water. Many books say slavery was just a mistake in history. Many books say slavery was just a mistake in history. Many books say slavery was just a mistake in history. Many books say slavery was just a mistake in history. But no, slavery was an industry, carefully designed with precision and cruelty to crush the human spirit. They wanted us to forget we were once kings, to forget our civilization, our science, our art. But listen, my friends, as long as this tired heart still beats and I tell this story, that greatness lives. Have you ever been inside a coffin while still breathing? When Kofi was pushed into the belly of the ship, the sun left his life forever. They stacked captives like lumber. The space for each man was smaller than a grave. Wrists chained to ankles so tightly they could not turn. And the smell, a mixture of infection, blood, and ocean salt that became a wall of captivity. In total darkness, broken only by distant torchlight, Kofi heard voices in many languages: Yoruba, Igbo, Fon. Once strangers, now united by pain. Someone began to whisper a melody from his village. Guards struck with whips to silence them, because they feared sound. They feared voice. Because as long as a voice exists, the spirit is not defeated. My listener, my friends, this is where they believed our history ended. They thought if they tore us from our land and locked us in floating dungeons, our roots would die. But they were wrong. Our roots were never in the soil. They were in our hearts. That first night, through sickness and pain, 6.0, Kofi closed his eyes and burned the memory of his village sunset into his mind. He vowed to survive, not for himself, but so that one day someone like me could sit here and tell his story to you. Today, we heard only part of that scream, a scream swallowed by Atlantic waves. But this is only the beginning. Next time, we enter the Middle Passage, where the ocean turned red, and our people learned not just to survive the waves, but to rise above them. Before you go, think of those people on those ships. They did not lose. They became seeds planted in foreign soil. Share this history. Your like makes James's voice stronger. Your subscription breaks the chains of ignorance. And I, James, will wait for you until the final word. Do not let this flame die.